well, but the following week, which is uh, August 16, I think, or 17, there's not going to be a live stream. So we have a live stream this week, next week, but not on that week. So so 3 weeks from now there will not be a live stream. Anyway, thank you for coming, guys. And the format is I talk about the given topic for 30 minutes, and then we shift to Q&A, and then I can answer whatever questions you have. Okay, so the topic tonight is actually, if you're not interested in FireOS, you might say this is not important, but we're not actually what you'll learn tonight is how to apply the analysis of any platform, and it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with a specific one like FireOS. We'll analyze the platform as far as this specific application on Android, and we'll see what the risks are, and we'll see if it's a real risk or not, and then hopefully you will learn to analyze it yourself. You can use this kind of analysis on pretty much any platform, and you can decide for yourself if you want to be on ZocBook, you want to be on Instagram, you want to be on X, you want to be on Discord. So it's the same kind of principles will apply here. So the question that I raise is, if you want to do the Google phone, is FireOS from Amazon, is that an option? Can you use FireOS? And there's some interesting things about FireOS. FireOS is actually AOSP. Now, I had an old FireOS tablet from many years ago. I don't have one right now, but I had one from many years ago. So I have experienced FireOS, and this was probably before I even did the Google phones. And when I tried it, I understood now what's in it, and the question is it safe? It's actually based on AOSP. So what Amazon did was they took AOSP, then they put their own store. So they put their own store on there, which allows you to install whatever APK files they allow. Actually, they have their own submission policies. You can submit apps to the Amazon store separately from the Google Play Store. They do allow you to log into Google and put in your stuff using the Google Play Store, but I think it's intercepted by Amazon. But the actual basis of FireOS is AOSP. So the question is that safe? So let's discuss that and look at the construction of AOSP here for a moment. So AOSP means that the OS itself came from open source, and given that it is AOSP, it means there's no Google apps on there, which is very significant. That means there are no Google services in theory installed on FireOS. And in fact, the way this would work out, because an Android FireOS or an Amazon FireOS is not really licensed for Google use, then they can't even call it a Google Android. It's going to be an Amazon Android, which means that likely it doesn't have any kind of Google apps on there. At least not directly. So that's my guess. I mean, I don't have a FireOS right now, but if any of you have a FireOS, you can tell me if there are any Google apps pre-installed on there. From what I recall, it did not. It just had Amazon stuff on there. So again, I don't have a fixed answer today. We're actually just going to analyze it and go through the process of analysis. I don't have a conclusion here because I don't have a FireOS here. So I'm going to kind of, go through the process, and you tell me if you have a FireOS, if what I'm saying is applicable or not. So the question is, does any Google service exist on FireOS. There's no Google Play Store, so therefore my guess is that it doesn't have Google services. Google services include the things that have to do with 24/7 location tracking. That's not going to exist. Why? Because that's not on the open source. All of the telemetry for apps, it's not going to have it on the open source. It's just AOSP. So it's no different than, as far as Google, I'm only talking about the Google portion here. There's nothing really in AOSP, even with the Amazon variant, that's going to have anything connected with Google on it. So basically, my guess, based on this analysis, because it comes from AOSP and you can't just load Google services on here without disallowing the use of the Amazon store. And they modified AOSP here, obviously. They had to modify it because you're logging in with your Amazon account now with your Google account. Then it is not likely that there's going to be any kind of Google spyware on it. So that's my perception of this. Again, it's been a while since I had a FireOS, but I was thinking about it for a long time, and I said, based on that, I don't think it's likely that Amazon FireOS is going to have any Google spyware. Well, that's a big plus. That's a big plus. At least you know one side. Some of the dangers, like that I talk about with Google services, is the 24/7 location tracking, the telemetry, and all the secret code they put in there to the NLP, the network location provider that does all the Wi-Fi triangulation and all that. None of that will exist. Therefore, that part of it is going to be safer. Okay, so this is on the Google portion of this. Okay, so Simon here, stop lying about this, it's still data collecting. Okay, so on the Google side, that's the analysis I come with. Now, obviously, and this is what Simon is referring to, is of course it's Amazon. So Amazon is going to have your Amazon ID on the unit because you're going to log in with your Amazon ID instead of a Google ID. So obviously there's going to be a replacement. So all of the dangers of Google will be gone, but now Amazon is on it. So the question is, how bad is that? And this is the part that's a little hazier, but we'll kind of cover that because the risk of Amazon is different than the risk of Google. And many of you don't really understand this if you don't understand the big picture of what Google actually tries to do. It's like saying, okay, I logged into X, and therefore X knows everything I'm doing on X. Okay, that's right. I log into Facebook, and of course Facebook knows everything you're doing on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and so on. Threads, right? Then you log into Google, and then once you log into Google, like let's say you're on YouTube, then it knows everything you're doing in Google. But there's a difference here between these platforms, and it's going to be the same difference with Amazon here. There are actually only two players in existence. Actually, you can add TikTok to the mix here. You can add TikTok to the mix. Again, you log into TikTok. Obviously, TikTok knows everything you do on TikTok. But the difference is only Google and Facebook have the infrastructure to know what you're doing on the internet. Okay, that's the difference here. Yes, every platform, including your bank, knows what you do on the bank. Twitter knows what you're doing, or X knows what you're doing on X. TikTok knows what you're doing on TikTok. Amazon knows what you're doing on Amazon. Google knows what you're doing everywhere. Important point. Facebook knows what you're doing everywhere. That's a big difference. Okay? In fact, think about this. You're on let's say you're I forgot what I was going to say because I read your comments and I forgot what I was going to say. So anyway, the difference is that the infrastructure of the Google ID, let's talk about the Google ID for a moment here. The Google ID is a little bit different because of something called cross-device tracking. Google's the only one with this. So when you log into your phone, well, you only log in once to your phone. So your phone is always logged in to Google. So everything you do on your Android phone is known to Google. If you go to a desktop computer or a laptop computer, while you have an Android, it's actually matching that. It knows that you're on the same network. It knows, the computer knows that you have a phone and what the identity of the phone is. And when you go to any website, because of Google Analytics, Google can then sense the Google ID anywhere you go. Do you understand the difference here? The Google ID knows everything on the internet. In fact, the Google ID knows you went to Amazon. Or Google knows from the Google ID that you went to Amazon. Google knows that you went to Facebook, because of the infrastructure of every website having some Google code in there, primarily because of Google Analytics. So every website has, Google Analytics and Google Ads, and because of that, there's a Google spyware on every website, and therefore the Google ID is known. Same with Facebook. Facebook has the Facebook like button, and so many sites have Facebook like buttons. And so when you go to any site, the Facebook like button allows Facebook to spy on you on the internet, on any website that has a Facebook like button, or any app with a Facebook like button, which is actually spyware for Facebook. Only Google and Facebook have this infrastructure. So Amazon does not have this infrastructure. So if you're logged into the tablet under Amazon, yes, Amazon can, of course, track what you do on the tablet. And of course, they admit they're tracking you because they want to sell you stuff. And whatever you do on the device, the tablet in this case, is going to be used to feed you products on Amazon. That should be obvious. That should be obvious. So Amazon knows everything you do on Amazon. Now, Amazon has a special reach. Obviously, Amazon is big, and many of us buy products from Amazon, so they know a lot about what you buy and what your habits are, what your emails are, what your identity is, where you're shipping stuff. So they know a lot about you. So there's obviously some concern about that. You can't hide the fact that you're spending money on a platform with your credit card and all that information on there. So Amazon itself knows everything you do about Amazon, but here's the limitation. Amazon does not know when you're not on Amazon. So if you go to some other website, they don't actually know that because there's no telemetry, because they're using AOSP. So their telemetry is limited to whatever Amazon app is loaded on the Amazon FireOS. So if you use Kindle, whatever you search for on the device, if you use some Amazon app on there, of course they'll know exactly what you're doing on any Amazon app. But they are not able to cross to the internet like Google and Facebook, because they don't have the infrastructure for that. Now, given that there's still some ability here, they could, I don't know if they do this, but they could, of course, intercept things like DNS, so they can find out what websites you visit. I don't know if they do or not. That's something that you always have to put in the back of your mind. So they may know if you're visiting, political sites and such, if you use that on a tablet. Um, but the actual use of a tablet though is mostly for media consumption. When I had a FireOS, the only reason I had it was really to run Kindle. And they already know what I bought because I buy it from the Amazon store. So they know what books I buy, and shouldn't be a mystery to Amazon because I'm paying for it. So nothing new is being passed. Now they know a lot. Like I said, I've told people this. That the problem is that Amazon knows so much about you, including what size bra you're buying from the store and what color. Yeah, they know that, and not only that, they send out an email confirming it to you, so that your email then announces to the world that anybody spying on your email will know that, and that's one of the bad things. However, if I were to measure risk here, although the Amazon FireOS is not perfect because of it knows everything you do on Amazon, there's no escaping if you're using an Amazon product that Amazon will know what you do on Amazon. That's obvious. But they're not going to know, like I said, what you're going to do outside of Amazon. So let's say you run TikTok on Amazon FireOS. What would happen there? My guess is that there would be no identity given to TikTok because it's AOSP. That's my guess. So in terms of balancing risk, then I would say, this is kind of a lesser risk than, let's say, using an Android, a much lesser risk. So if somebody said to me that I want a tablet, and this is the problem, we don't really have any good options with tablets. And some people were asking me what tablets can I use, and I suggest don't use a tablet, use Surface Go, Microsoft Surface Go, and just modify Windows and remove all the spyware on there. It's going to be better than using an iPad. So that's one option. Or if you end up with an Android, like let's say you do a Samsung Galaxy, then unfortunately it's going to have Google on there, and you're going to have the 24/7 location tracking and all of that exists with Google. That's not going to exist in FireOS. That does exist on an iPad. And it's not going to exist on a Microsoft Surface Pro or Microsoft Surface Go. So I'm going to balance all this and say, obviously the best choice would be a de-Googled tablet. But as you all know, there aren't too many options for de-Googling tablets. I believe the only OS that's you can load is on a Samsung Galaxy. I forget the model. Is it the 6? It's an older one. That's about the only model you can load. And I've never been successful loading Lineage OS on a Amazon, on a Samsung. I've never been successful with that. James, that's pretty funny. Yeah. Well, James, Amazon knows your trial and error and all the sites that you've ever bought. You can ask Amazon, and Amazon will know. So it's a matter of risk management here. I don't have a perfect answer for you because when it comes to tablets, I don't have too many choices. That's why I just suggest Microsoft Surface, because at least it's touchscreen based and it's portable, and you can run the same stuff. and it's touchscreen, and it's smaller. It's like a larger tablet, and the risks are pretty defined as long as you turn off all the privacy settings, as I mentioned before. Pixel tablet just released, but there's no degoogled OS for it. So until we have a degoogled OS, then we don't really have any real choices. So the choices we have, since I certainly don't offer flashing of Samsung Galaxies because we've never been successful doing one. I actually bought a Samsung phone that is compatible, and I never succeeded in doing it. It didn't work, and I don't really know. The Microsoft Surfaces are heavy. The Go is pretty small, so it depends on which Microsoft Surface you're talking about. But anyway, I had a Samsung device, a Samsung phone. I tried to put the OS on there, and I did not succeed. And so it's kind of risky. I said, if you do this and you don't succeed, there's a chance that you buy several of these phones, and then we waste money because they were expensive, and then you can't flash them. So I've not tried buying a Samsung tablet, since I've never succeeded in loading the new OS on a Samsung, because it's a different procedure than loading, let's say, Lineage OS or some other OS. So for that reason, I can't even consider a degoogled Samsung. It's not going to be degoogled. So if you're going to use a Samsung, it's going to be your usual Android. So what are the choices then? The choices become Microsoft Surface or some other Lenovo, ultralight that can act as a tablet running Windows. Again, Windows options, or Amazon FireOS. So Amazon FireOS is definitely on the list here as a choice, and then you kind of compare what is the difference between Microsoft Surface Go, let's say, and Amazon FireOS. Microsoft will spy on you on the Microsoft Surface Go. Amazon will spy on you on the FireOS. But what are they really spying on? What data do they actually have? And I'm going to tell you, it's actually much more limited than you think. It's a lot more limited. There are very few things that they can actually do on AOSP. So yeah, and Windows itself is not really built for the kind of spying that you find on a real, like, Android phone or iPads. And the reason is, and this actually applies to both to FireOS, to Amazon FireOS tablets, and to Microsoft Surface Go. The interesting thing about both devices don't have sensors. They don't have the sensors you find on a phone. Gyroscope, GPS, all of that. They don't exist on Windows computers. They don't exist on a FireOS tablet. So they don't have the sensors for doing that. Neither, I would imagine, would have support for an NLP or network location provider. And neither would be providing data to the network location provider, since there are only two network location providers that do the 24-hour location tracking of Wi-Fi routers, and that's Apple and Google. They don't have that. So based on that, I'm going to say that the risks of some of these devices are lower, and they don't really identify you anyway because they don't have a Google ID, which is really the danger. The danger is the Google ID and the Facebook ID, because they can cross the internet. It's going to cross the internet. Whereas whatever data is being taken from you from Microsoft Windows or from FireOS is not going to have an internet kind of reach. So for most of you, I'm going to say it's low risk. So if you need a tablet device, the only suggestion I have really is to consider FireOS and a Microsoft Windows modified. Again, I have a video on how to set the Windows. You have to remove your Microsoft ID. There's a lot of things you got to do on the Surface Go. You can't just leave it as is. You got to remove the Microsoft ID, and then it works just like a standard desktop. Okay, so you have Pi-hole. Well, the VPN that I sell already comes with Pi-hole. So Amazon should really take a stab at making smartphones. Yeah, they built a Google Android, a standard Google Android. I bought one. It's pretty crappy. It's basically a cheap phone, like $100, and it was pretty crappy. So probably the last time I'll do that. And it's a standard Android, but this was before the Google phones. Many years back, I actually bought a phone from Amazon. So, so now Jan is saying every app spying and sharing with companies that pay for your info on the phone. Now that's a little different issue. It's a different issue because yes, you're right. I mean, Jan makes a good point. So let's say we already know that companies like the Weather Channel is actually spying on you, taking your location, and every time you go to the Weather Channel, whether it be on a Microsoft Windows computer or a Amazon FireOS, that app is going to capture your IP address, your location, and then sell it. That's independent of device. They do that everywhere. The Weather Channel app is owned by IBM. This is a known fact. It's in the press. They admit to this. It's not a secret that they collect every time you go to the Weather Channel. They collect your location info, your IP address, and then sell it to the reverse lookup IP address, the IP address reverse lookup databases. The answer to that is don't give the apps permissions. Don't give the apps permissions. I'm leaning towards devices like the Steam Deck. I have Steam Deck. Yeah, I mean, the Steam Deck is great for games. It doesn't have the interface for real use. Like, would you read Kindle on a Steam Deck? Yeah, it's not very practical. Yeah, I have a Steam Deck. So, yeah, it's good for games, obviously, but I wouldn't do things like read Kindle on it. So here's the other one that you may want to consider. This is actually a lot safer, and that is an actual Kindle paperwhite. A Kindle Paperwhite. So, meaning that the black and white screen Kindle that has batteries for weeks. Now that's a pretty safe device. I can't imagine what that can really collect that Amazon doesn't already know. It doesn't have any sensors. It doesn't have location tracking. It doesn't have any of that. The device is very, very basic. So if your primary purpose is books, then a Kindle device is obviously much, much safer than an iPad. The only reason you want to have a FireOS is because you want to do apps. Other than that, let's say you want to watch Prime Video or Netflix, then a tablet obviously would be better. So the other thing, and last final point on a FireOS tablet, it's pretty low powered. So it's cheap though, but it's low powered. It's a low powered computer. Obviously, a Surface Go, Microsoft Surface Go, is going to be more powerful than a FireOS, but it's also a lot cheaper. So anyway, that's just the analysis here, and it's not perfection, but we don't have any options when it comes to tablets. But it's not the same as a phone, and it doesn't have the capabilities of spying on you like a phone. Okay, so my sponsor is Linode, and I'm so happy to be associated with Linode, Akamai Linode now. And I've been associated with them for 2.5 years now, I think. And not only am I sponsored by Linode, but I also use Linode pretty heavily. So I have a lot of servers. I moved a lot of my servers from competing companies like Amazon AWS, GoDaddy, and all of these different ones, and many little ISPs, and I moved everything to Linode. And why did I do that? Because I can save money. I'm going to tell you right now that I easily saved from Amazon AWS. I easily saved 50% just by going to Linode. So if you're running a website, for example, you can run a website for $5 a month or $60 a year. And that includes the bandwidth. That's pretty reasonable. So, and there's so many services that they offer related to Linux servers, and they really have the expertise and the excellent support that I really have not had a problem with. I deal with with Linode. Me and my staff deal with Linode pretty much daily, and because we have a lot of servers, and we interact with them, and they've always been so helpful. Nothing has changed. Even when I got bought by Akamai, nothing's changed. We're still receiving the same kind of good support. So if you use the code Rob Braxman, linode.com/Rob Braxman, they're going to give you a $100 credit when you sign up that you can use within 2 months. So you can use those to test out servers and do it for free for the first 2 months. Okay, so let me resume by doing the Q&A and answering your questions here. So, what did Javon Sims ask? Yeah, I don't have the ability to de-Google any tablet right now. In fact, I haven't tried. I have not been successful. And I don't know why I was not successful with Samsung. I spent a bit of time on it, and I was not successful doing that. And for that reason, I don't have a de-Google option for Android. Now, I'm going to tell you some other options here that I didn't mention. There are actually some AOSP type devices. Actually, I have a video on it. I have a tablet that's using the LCD, the black and white screen, and it is running Android. And it's what the heck is the name of that device? I have a video on that from long ago, like 2-3 years ago now, and what is interesting is that the OS on it is actually AOSP. The product doesn't have Google. There's no Google Play Store. There's no nothing. You will find that there are some devices from China that actually have to run on AOSP because they're not authorized to put Google on it. Because you have to have a contract with Google to put Google apps on the device. So they're selling the devices just running straight Android AOSP without Google. So you may be surprised, and I found this device. I found it on Amazon, and it was like $300. And what was different about the device was that I'm able to do Android things. Primarily, you can use Kindle on it, but you can do Android things like transfer files and read a book and all that, and write with a pen. And you don't have to change, you don't have to de-Google the device. There's no need to de-Google it because it's already running AOSP. Because it's media consumption. Again, this is really an important thing to balance. You know, some of you are pretty hardcore with privacy, and you're not going to pay attention to this. But you know, I understand what the risks are, and I always look at the risk involved. Like, what do I do? And you ask yourself that same question: what do you do on a tablet? For most of us, the tablet is for media consumption. So if you're consuming media, it's not really able to spy on you because you're not really doing things on it. Like, I'm not running email on it. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not necessarily visiting any websites on it either. It's really just, you know, watching Netflix, watching Amazon Prime Video, reading Kindles and things like that, or listening to Spotify. Those media consumption things are not really things that they can spy on, because who cares? Who cares what you listen to on Spotify? Who cares what movie you watch on Netflix? Who cares what you watch on Prime Video? And who cares what Amazon already knows what you bought on Kindle, and so it's not going to be a big mystery when you load it on your device. So yeah, be aware that there may be, just like this device, and I can't remember the name of the device that I bought. It's a black and white screen LCD. So the battery lasts for a long time, like a week, kind of like the Paperwhite, and it's running AOSP. So it's very similar to FireOS, and it's an option. It's an option you can consider. Thank you, Neil. Great short video. I didn't think it was short. It's just a standard size video. Total domains allowed for. What is that, Simon? What is that in reference to? Your media consumption profile actually could be used to fingerprint you. Yeah, but who has access to your media profile? Netflix already has access to your Netflix profile. Spotify already knows what music you listen to. Kindle already knows what Kindle books you're buying. Prime Video, and obviously Amazon already knows not just the books, but the movies you're watching with Prime Video. But there is no entity that knows what you're doing at all, because it doesn't have any. Android doesn't work like that. You can't take data cross application. So somebody can't, on a standard AOSP, you can't go listen in. It's part of the security of AOSP. You can't find out what you're doing on some other app. One app cannot listen to another app. Okay, just make sure that you understand that. One app can't listen to another app on AOSP. Now Google can do that. The telemetry that can see what you're doing in every app is on the Google Android. It's not on AOSP. Okay, so just so you know that, and put that as part of your risk analysis. Okay, so Frank's Beans, that's good to know. So that's excellent then. If they can do that to Pixel tablet, maybe we can support that when that comes out. So we can probably flash it for that. We flash with Calyx all the time. Okay, there is no way to intercept app data between apps, meaning one app can't take data from another app. So Amazon would have to load, since they don't make AOSP, they can't load an app that can steal data from all of the apps and then report it to Amazon. They shouldn't be able to do that. So, I mean, they could, in theory, build something equivalent to Google services and put spyware on there. I guess that's possible, but given the small number of people using FireOS, I don't think that's reasonable. How many domains allowed for your host package? What is a host package? I don't know what a host package is. I don't know what you're referring to. Okay, so usually only if you use Facebook to log in. We're all living in a simulated reality anyways. Okay, so Rob doesn't do anything illegal. Yes, obviously I don't do anything illegal. I mean, yes, meticulous is quite correct. I'm pretty visible here. I mean, it's I'm likely surveilled, and I assume that even my IRS records are surveilled. I am target for hackers constantly. People are hacking anything I own, anything Braxme or anything that I'm affiliated with. They're all hacking, trying to hack all that. So yeah, I have to be pretty much on the up and up directly. He means domain for the base Linode package. I don't know. You need to ask Linode that. I mean, domains are not counted in the server. You buy your domain and you link it. I don't know why there would be a limit to the number of domains you can put. It's your server. You can do whatever you want. I run on my Linode servers. How many domains do I have? I have quite a few. There really isn't. Why is there a limit to the domains? There's no limit. I don't have an ETA on a Brax 3 phone. I can tell you that I'm pretty low now on Brax 2 phones. So yeah, I'm gonna have to be switching to selling you pixels only for a while here, because I don't have. I'm gonna run out of stock of Brax 2 very soon. Yeah. So, obviously, I'm not getting any more heavy sales on Brax 2 in anticipation, but I've lowered the price of Brax 2. Brax 3 will be more expensive. Pine tablet. I have a Pine phone. I do not have a Pine tablet. My problem with the experimental products on Pine, which is a great company and good people, is that they have very bad battery life. So, yeah, I don't think my Pine phone would last 7 hours. Here's a Pine phone. I haven't used it in a while. It's really for experimentation. So, you can see the little Pine phone, the Pine logo in the corner over there. So it's more for experimentation, and it's not really practical because it doesn't have the battery life. So I presume the Pine tablet will have the same issue. Because the issue really is in the OS. It's not even just the hardware. The software has to do the power saving, and Linux isn't really built like an Android. They're not built to do power saving. It's not built to do to shut down and go sleep mode all the time as Android is. And Android is always in sleep mode. You have that new Brax 3 coming up. Yes, so Brax 3 will come out, I presume, before winter. So, and I do have a Brax 3 that I'm using. It doesn't have an OS yet, though. So, and I can't really explain the features yet because we're still under development. But I do have a physical Brax 3 phone. Yes. So anxiety source. Okay, I wanted to get one to test, but sounds like it's not worth then. Thanks. Yeah. Again, if you're testing and you're doing development and you want to use it as a Linux device and you're going to use it plugged in, it's a different case. But if you're going to use it as a portable device, then you have to assume it's going to have some problems. Like, for example, I wanted to sell products that use the PinePhone CPU because I could actually make a Brax router out of this because it's running Linux. So I could use this as a Brax router. But I don't have a steady supply of this. So I couldn't buy them in volume even if I wanted. Because power saving is not an issue for Brax router use, and this really is a CPU with a display and everything, and it's running Linux, so it can run Brax router, and I could program it to do everything that a Brax router will do. And it's, sad because they don't really have stock, so I can't really go and say, I need a steady supply of this instead of a Raspberry Pi. First of all, it's got to be cheaper than a Raspberry Pi, and it's not. Yeah, James Randolph is correct. PinePhone is worth it for developers. It's really, a good way to come up with, ideas for doing mobile. But Linux, and this is a different video. In fact, I need to do a video on that at some point and to explain the difficulty in putting Linux on mobile. You see, Android has been doing this since 2006, or even before that. They were bought by Google in 2006, I believe, or 2007. But they were doing this before. So they took Linux and they modified Linux for mobile use. And there are many changes they did to Linux to make it work for mobile. They really thought about every detail that has to do with going mobile. The lead one being power saving. So, unlike Linux, the Android is used to shutting down the CPU and actually staying in the background, and it has the specific chips to go in sleep mode, which is not part of Linux. At least the kind of sleep mode that you need on a mobile device. So sleep mode on Linux assumes a desktop environment running, either an ARM chip or 8086 chip, but it's not really geared to the special things that are on Android, where Android can actually shut down and do instant startup and stay using low power for a very long time. That is not built into Linux. The other thing that is not built into Linux, which is a very serious problem, which is going to cause issues, is because they're using standard Linux here. You're using the standard Linux kernel, and then you're expecting it to behave like a mobile device. And you can't, because one of the other things that are built into Android is the security. So mobile security and the encryption and all that is tied to the kernel. So all of the security of a phone is built into the OS. When you're running Linux, it's not like that. So standard Linux, you boot it up, and then it has to attach the drive, and then when it attaches the drive, it then will do the encryption on the drive, but Linux has already started. Okay, so Linux starts first without any kind of security, and then it loads the drive. Well, Android doesn't work like that. So Android immediately is tying the operation to a login, right? Pretty much immediately. So it's the design of it that Linux isn't made for. So Linux is not made for mobile, and that's one of the limitations. So I like to support some of the other products that are running on mobile, like Ubuntu Touch and Sailfish OS and so on. But that's kind of the limitation. Sailfish OS can run Android inside the Linux thing, but again, it's all the same limitations as they actually have to in order to run efficiently, they actually have to run inside Android. So Android does use SE Linux, Northern Chimp. In fact, that could be I forgot about that. I was going to make a video about SE Linux as it applies to Android and why it's very hard to hack a phone. So I don't know what the equivalent is on Apple, since it's all a secret in there, but on see you later, Mysticulous. On Android, SE Linux is the basis, and if you don't root the device, it's really very difficult to hack it because of SE Linux. And that's what I wanted to explain that, because people are like saying, "Oh, somebody hacked my phone." Yeah, I mean that's beyond the skill level of most people to overwrite SE Linux, because when you compile something, an app isn't going to have that right. So the only way to overwrite SE Linux is to have an SE Linux compiled system app, kind of like what Google does. And you can't just load system apps on an existing OS. It's not something a user can do downloading from the internet. You can't go on the internet and go download a file and it'll install a system app. It doesn't allow that. You can only download an APK file, which is actually running in a virtual machine. Okay, so rooting, as Adam Smith is referring to here, is when you can actually go in there and replace system file. That's the only way you can get hacked, and is to root it, which means an external interface. You can't just download that on the internet. So if you root a device, then you're exposing yourself to being able to install a system app that is not APK based and dump it into the file system and have that interfere. So that is not normal. You can't normally do that because of SE Linux. So this is why you never root. You never root. Jensis, boy, you remember the Periscope days? It's been a while. I'm not sure I'll go back to Twitter Live or whatever they're going to call, or X Live, whatever they're going to call when that when Musk puts that on. I probably won't do that. So you have to be a big boy to root stuff. It is scary. Yeah. So again, the SE Linux as an infrastructure prevents that. I'm going to put that on my video list. It's an interesting topic, and it's really important to understand why. I don't think, if your phone is not rooted, I don't think it's a simple matter to say my phone has been hacked. I don't know how a phone can be hacked outside of iPhones, being hit by Pegasus. By the way Pegasus is working, we don't know obviously all the details on how that works, but based on what Apple has done, the way Pegasus is being used by the hackers on an iPhone is they're using an attachment, and then that attachment, when you click on it, it apparently activates some 0-day, and then they're able to take over the phone. Okay, so that's a bug. And obviously Apple's iOS is not open source, so nobody can tell you anything. ADB commands are safe if you're doing it yourself. It's not safe if others are doing it on your device. By the way, so ADB is the way you can use a computer to access an Android. Okay, so ADB is the Android developer tools. So the Android developer tool specifically is called ADB. So ADB is how we can install the OS, change the OS, examine the files on OS. In fact, it's the same tool used to examine your Pine phone. If you want to, look at the files on a Pine phone, you can use ADB or you can use SSH. But ADB is one of the ways that you can do it, especially on like an Ubuntu Touch. So ADB as a tool, which is made by Google, it allows you to access the file system on your mobile device, Android-based mobile device. Now, the one thing that ADB cannot do is it cannot break security, because in order for ADB to work, in fact, even if you plug in your phone to the computer, you need to log in. You need to log in. So that's not the same as rooting, because, when you're rooting, you don't need to log in. So you need to log into the device with whatever password you used on the device. And so ADB can't access the device if they're not logged in. So if you have a password on your device, which is required on any Android, then there really is no way to do that, even using ADB, while there is a way using rooting. If you root, you override all that. You basically have superpower rights to access the phone, and that's an access that's granted to the OEM. The OEM can run a rootkit that can actually root the device, and they can do whatever they want on there, and override security. Once they install it, then they can't really do that. Okay, so anyway, that's something that Android hacking sites are way ahead of you. No, I don't. Without rooting, there are some ways. For example, the Exynos hack. They're hacking through the baseband modem. That's a way in. Doesn't access the OS though. That's accessing the baseband modem. And yeah, they're able to break in there, and they can even drop a file, but they can't really take over the OS. So anyway, there are quite a few limitations that it's really, I would say it's state level skill to break into a mobile device. In fact, Pegasus is a state level attack. So it's not something that, it's a very, very common thing I hear. And this is something that, I just want to caution many of you, because many of you come to me and say, I was hacked, my phone was hacked. Help me. How do I solve this? My phone was hacked. And when you actually ask, how do you know your phone was hacked? Because it's fairly possible to hack a phone if you know how to break into the password, because you know the person and you have physical access to the device. It's very difficult unless there's a what do you call this? A 0 day to actually be able to hack an Android, just being a regular hacker. I don't think so. I actually don't know how. I think I can figure it out if I had a phone physically. But if I don't have a physical phone in my hand, I'm trying to do it remotely, like doing it download style like Pegasus, because that's dealing with a specific 0 day. That's probably a secret. That's why they can't figure it out. And then secondly, that's a state level attack. State level. Not cracker hacker guy over there. So if somebody tells me my phone was hacked, unless your enemy is the state, I'm not going to actually believe you. State level skill, but police departments buy devices from companies that have state level skills. Yeah, but what they can't even break into they can't even break into an iPhone. So you were not hacked, just stop it. They don't find you that important. You were not hacked, just stop it. They don't find you that important, says Great Gold. Okay, so what actually happens though instead of being hacked? What actually happens is most of the time the platform was hacked. So this is the most common hack of all, and this is what people perceive as being hacked. Can you get hacked by receiving spam text messages? Yeah, actually there is, Jan. And that's hacking the baseband modem. It's called hidden text. You can actually there are hacks. Let me rephrase this, because there are actually hacks that don't deal with intercepting the actual OS on the phone, meaning they're not an Android hack, they're a hack on the baseband modem. And what can they do if they hack the baseband modem? Well, what they can do is they can make the phone trigger sending a text to somebody else. So they can make it seem like you sent the text, which is great for blackmail. They can also turn the phone on. So then the microphone is on when your phone is on, so it's in your pocket, and they know you're having a secret meeting, and then they can do what is called a hidden text. They send a hidden text which doesn't display on the screen, turn on without opening it. Yes, clickless. I think I discussed this in the baseband modem hacks. Yeah, this is something that is part of the SIM jacking attack, which I've made many videos on. SIM jacker. So look for that video, SIM jacker. These are hacks on the baseband modems. These are known. They were discovered. They're state level attacks, but they were discovered, and the company actually named it SIM jacker. I forget the name of the company now, but I made several videos on it. But there was one specific video I made on it, and I think there's also a video on somebody saying that you can't hack a phone with Graphene OS. I think that wasn't the title of the video, but some guy, one of those people from Graphene, they're the crazy people from Graphene. They're very crazy, okay? So some crazy guy from Graphene said, "Oh, you can't hack a phone with Graphene OS," and I beg to differ. You can hack. Again, state level hack, not a normal party. And one of the hacks was SimJacker. The other one is Exynos, where they were actually able to drop a file in there, and the guys from Graphene would say, "No, you can't do that. There's memory locked." There's all these different explanations that they told me, and they're in dreamland because obviously it was already done. So that hack actually occurred. Now, none of the hacks that I know of were hacks that can actually penetrate the OS and actually manipulate the OS itself, unless your device is rooted or unless you have physical access. So, and obviously, if there's a state level hack beyond what I just said, it's not something that I currently know about. But let me go back to what the most common hacks are, and that you may perceive as a hacking on your device. And normally, this is what people call me about and say, "I was hacked, help me." And what was hacked was the platform. So, yeah, somebody can hack your email. Somebody can hack your Twitter account, your X account, your YouTube account, your this, your that. All of this are all possible. Now, I'll tell you how that's possible. It's actually quite basic, and we are all subject to this, so you have to take precautions. You can be lazy and forget. including me. And if you forget, you're going to get hacked. Okay? It's not that difficult of a hack. It actually doesn't require any special skills. All you have to do is say, what is your login to whatever it is, the platform? And so this doesn't apply to your phone specifically, but the apps on your phone. So let's say you're logging into to ZocBook on your phone. What would be the hack? Well, the hack is simple. You use your login as your email. Obviously, is the login, and then many places have databases of stolen passwords from all of the hacks that occurred on any big platform. In fact, my YouTube account was subject to this. As you know, even Linus Tech Tips got publicly hacked. Somebody broke into his YouTube and posted something on YouTube. So anything can happen. And the reason that they got hacked was somebody attacked the company that you're signed up to. So if you're signed into LinkedIn, there's been a LinkedIn hack. There's been hacks on Adobe. I had LinkedIn long ago. I don't have LinkedIn now. I had Adobe. That got hacked. I got Canva, which is I make it to make thumbnails. That got hacked. They got me there. They got my email and password, I think, from that. There's so many of these companies, including, the what's the name of the credit company that got hacked. So what happens is your username password combination, if you're using any of these platforms and you have the same password on many of them, that is likely to get hacked. Okay, so solution, once you discover that you're in a database of hacks, you need to change your password. Safety precaution, you use different passwords on different platforms, and then you will not be subject to that. Do we make a mistake in all this? Yes, it's very common. We don't think about it. We think we're not that important, and then you get hacked. Okay, so unfortunately, it's any misstep, any carelessness, any laziness, on my part or yours, we get hacked. So temporarily they can hack. Never have the same password on financial sites as you do with social media sites or any other site. Make sure financials. I'm not aware of any bank that's been hacked. So make sure that your banking and login, username, password. In fact, you may want to use different emails than those, like I do, and keep it separate. And do two-factor. Well, the solution is not to do the two-factor that they want, which is a phone number. The solution is to do passkeys. You can use a password manager, not a password saver. Use a password manager app, something that requires a login. Don't do this, use the browser's auto save password. Then somebody borrows your computer and logs into all of your platforms right there because it's offered to you. Don't do that. Then you're exposing your computer to somebody just logging in and changing your passwords and so on the computer. Don't do that. So use a password manager. I use a password manager all the time. And then that way you can have different user IDs and different emails and different passwords for each. Okay? Just a simple trick to making sure every password is different. You can you can attach something to some common password used for several sites. making sure they're in the same category, and then attach something that might be different for that site. So let's say you're on YouTube, maybe you put $Y at the end of the password. That way it's only for YouTube. Something along those lines. Or maybe start the password with Y ? And then whatever your common password is that you want to use for this category. So that's another way of doing it. Usually the case is that they don't actually know what the actual password is, they just know the hash. And they can kind of go back and do some comparisons, and they can figure out which password was assigned to which hash. Okay, but generally speaking, the method I'm talking about is usually safe for basic things, not for banking. For banking, use a unique password for banking. Okay, Jan, work is calling. Jan is like lunchtime or something. Yeah, so use a password manager, use different apps. But I'm telling you right now that many of you claim that you're attacked by your neighbor, hacked by your neighbor, and all that. And in reality, that's really not what happened. Okay, so somebody said this, and I will give you my opinion on this as well. So this is a very common thing. People have asked me, can somebody break into my Wi-Fi? Can somebody break into my Wi-Fi? That's a question. Okay, so the answer is yes. Anyone can break into Wi-Fi. Until WPA3 is up and running with no bugs, which it's not there yet, you can expect that anyone can hack Wi-Fi. How long it takes to hack your Wi-Fi depends, but likely, given enough patience, most Wi-Fi's can be cracked within a week. Okay, and this is just by randomly doing brute force. So you can brute force most Wi-Fi passwords within a week. So if you want to reduce that possibility, use a longer password for Wi-Fi. That'll take them longer. Okay. The problem with the Wi-Fi design is that you can test different passwords over and over and over, all night, all day, 24 hours a day. Use a supercomputer to break into it by sending multiple passwords, and there's no rate limiting on Wi-Fi login. So there's no rate limiting control in WPA2, the current standard. So WPA2 has been cracked a long time ago. So yes, they can break into the Wi-Fi. So now, what happens if they break into your Wi-Fi? If you're using a VPN, not much. Okay, one of the things that they're going to try to do when you break into Wi-Fi is obviously attack. They're going to be on the LAN. They can then do things on the network to block you and doing all that. And there's social engineering and so on, and intercept your traffic. But they can't do it if you're on a VPN. Okay, I'm always on a VPN, so all the traffic on the network is encrypted. So yes, so if they hack your, if they hack, is it possible to break into my Android phone via Flipper Zero by hacking my hotspot in Android phone? I don't think, I'm not aware of Flipper Zero being able to hack a phone. That's not what Flipper Zero is usually used for. but then again, that's physical access. So yeah, that's physical access. So there's different rules when there's physical access. So just be aware that yes, with physical access, the rules are a little bit different. There are things that can be done with physical access that you can't otherwise. Are there VPNs owned by federal agencies? Well, we're not going to know that, Ed. I have no idea. Possible. Some have made claims about some being actual, agents. How are we to prove that? That tracking. What if your phone is cloned? You can only clone the SIM card. So there is a way to clone the SIM card. In fact, many people have done that. That's a little harder now with LTE, 4G and up, because before you just need the IMSI, you can flash any IMSI on any SIM card, and you can do SIM jacking. That's the attack that does that, SIM jacking. So yes, they can do that, but the new one requires an actual SIM card to copy, I believe, because you need a K1. So there's two values now on the phone, SIM, K1 and the actual IMSI, and you need both. TPM is the security module, also called the secure enclave on an iPhone. And that's where they keep your fingerprint and all that validation. All of that data is kept on that security module. Have you considered providing Brax Drive encrypted drive service? Yes, I've considered that, Jack, but there are several companies already doing that. So I decided I was going to do it at some point, but I decided to not do that, and there's many companies that offer that service with end-to-end encryption. That's correct. Mr. Dondon is right. The TPM saves anything to do with device security. It's basically there's a unique identifier on your phone that uniquely identifies your phone. It's in that secure enclave area. So on an iPhone it's called secure enclave, and on other devices it's called TPM. Does adding a PIN code to your SIM prevent SIM jacking? SIM jacking, yes, it does. It does do that. How many people add PIN codes? Very small percentage. I can't even say I add a PIN code. I don't. I change my SIM cards all the time, so I don't do PIN codes on them because I don't want to be stopped from changing the SIM card. I change phone numbers all the time. So okay, so James just gave us the answer on Flipper. Yeah, as I recall, it's not really going to do that. Now, SIM jacker is not the same as SIM jacking. There's two actual separate hacks. One is a hack on the SIM card, that's SIM jacking. I have a video on that. So SIM jacking is a hack on the SIM card. SIM jacker is a hack on the baseband modem. They can actually issue commands to your phone on the baseband modem, and they haven't solved it yet as far as I know. And it doesn't work on every baseband modem, but certain ones. And they can issue basically web commands like HTML or modem commands to your baseband modem and actually make it respond and do things like dial somewhere else and intercept a call and do texting for you. That's a different kind of attack, and that's much more dangerous. Then the other attack, which is similar to SimJacker, is somebody actually was able to do a this one was a successful hack on Exynos on Samsung, and that they were actually able to basically crash the Samsung Exynos CPU on the baseband modem, because there's a separate CPU on the baseband modem versus the application processor. So there are actually two computers on your phone. So they were able to crash the baseband modem and then dump a file into the file system. So they were able to do that. I use T-Mobile home internet. Is it good for privacy? I don't think that matters. That has nothing to do with privacy. It's like saying, I use this ISP versus that ISP. They're all the same. Okay? So anyway, just again to summarize what I was talking about, since we're running out of time here, generally the hack, aside from baseband modem hacks, which is pretty high level hack, the likelihood of you being hacked by a normal hacker on a phone is highly unlikely. Like the hack on Jeff Bezos as a Pegasus level attack that was somebody claimed was Saudi Arabia. Probably something like Pegasus. But if you're saying that your neighbor hacked you, I'm just not going to buy that, because even I can't hack your Android. I don't know of a way currently, and I know how to hack many things, but I don't know how to hack Android without physical access. Is there any way to stop from crank calling you? Get a phone blocking feature. I have T-Mobile and it has phone blocking on it. This is giving you chest pain. Why are you getting chest pain? AF 1892. I just said you can't get hacked normally. So again, to summarize what I said earlier, the reason that it is very hard to hack is a lot of the security built into a phone is based on SE Linux. That is a security framework that is on Android that doesn't exist, for example, on desktop Linux. So it's unique to Android. It's the way that the rules have been made. So Google, of course, was the one who did this, and they made rules that says, okay, any app that it residing on a Android has to have permissions in advance, and these permissions have to be compiled into the application, and the permissions have to be stated and known ahead of time. And then you give the permission, in which case then everything is under control of the user. And the control is given to you by the framework called SE Linux. SE Linux, by the way, was invented by the three-letter agency. The No Such Agency, I believe, built that. No. XHD. You can load SE Linux. Okay, you need to understand what I'm saying here. You can load SE Linux on anything. You can load it on Linux. But there's no framework of permissions on Linux to use SE Linux in the way that limits it. On Linux, you have to set your own limitations for what SE Linux is going to limit. This is not the same thing. On Android, every app, this is part of the compiling process. When you compile an app, as you may not know this, but an APK is not actually a executable file. An APK is running inside a virtual machine called the Android runtime, or used to be called Dalvik or Dalvik. Okay, so if you're going to run inside the Android runtime, the app has to have a SE Linux framework compiled into it in advance, and it's based on Android permissions. There's no such thing on Linux. It doesn't have that. Okay, so meaning it's not implemented for mobile, whereas the implementation of SE Linux on Android is very specific. It's attached to the permissions you see in your permission screen. Okay, so that's a difference here. Okay, so on Android, Linux has been modified, the kernel has been modified to have SE Linux with permissions based, as you can see in settings, and all the permissions allowed are controlled by SE Linux framework that is compiled into all the code that's ever run on an Android. And the only way to install any kind of application and make it run is if it's running under this SE Linux framework, which declares the permission. So you can't load an app that says no camera access, and then the app secretly gives camera access. Can't do that. Can't do that. And the reason it can't do that is because SE Linux will stop the app from doing anything that doesn't pertain to its permission base. There is no such limitation on Linux. On Linux, you have to individually state the limitations of every application by setting a rule in SE Linux manually. So whoever's setting up the server can control the permissions. You can't do that on an Android. The permissions are preset and hard-coded into AOSP. Okay, so just make sure. I'll probably, you know, like I said, plan on that as being a future video. It's something. It's a little different concept. So it's actually on my list, you know, in the past to make a video about this, and I never did. I forgot. So yeah, so this is a lot of technical detail. But again, the only purpose of explaining this is to tell you that because of SE Linux, predetermining permissions of apps in advance is usually, as far as I'm aware, impossible to cheat. You can't just secretly do things that you didn't ask permission for. What you ought to worry about is what permissions you gave that you shouldn't have given. For example, you know, if you load TikTok will automatically, you know, assume you want contacts permission. I would just by nature remove permissions for contacts immediately. The reason is the moment you allow it, they pull the contacts pretty much immediately. And then even if you take out the permissions, they already got your contacts. So that's the danger of you know, when you load an app, check contacts immediately. You can turn on camera and sound and microphone and all that later. You know, that's not as dangerous. But contacts, the moment you enable it, they take your contacts and then cat's out of the bag. What are you going to do now? How do you take your contacts back? They basically zuck you immediately. So yeah, so in Android, the only way that they can get access to something, unless you're rooting the device, is to declare the rights that they want within the framework of what is called SE Linux. So this is not an option. You've got to do that. Now, what apps can override that? Rooted apps. Rooted apps. So that's why you don't root. Michael M. I use Windows. I've made several videos using Windows. Yes, I use Windows. I have many computers. Some are running Windows and some are running Pop OS. So Linux and Windows. I have to use Windows for video making. Okay, so there was a question. Line tapping. Nobody does that anymore for for law enforcement use. You don't need to tap a line to intercept. There's Stingray can be used without tapping because you're on mobile. And the other way is if you're being investigated by a law enforcement agency, they just can use the CALEA law and access. They just tap in. They just use the software. They type in your phone number and listen to you directly. Okay, so they don't need no one needs to go climb up anything. First of all, it's wireless, so who needs a landline tapping? There's no need for that. Just most phones are wireless, and if they're not wireless, they can be intercepted the same way. If they know your phone number, they don't need to go to you. They can just do it remotely. That's the new way, built in because of the CALEA law. Okay, I'm out of time. I actually went 1 minute over here. Thank you guys for watching. Again, there will be a live stream next week, but not the week after that.